Welcome to the tutorial for the strap for the 3D printed handbag. The strap is probably the most tricky part to make on the handbag, but with this tutorial and the additional instructions that you can find on the website, this should be straightforward for you to do. What you need to make the strap is what you see on the screen in front of you. First, of course, you need the 3D printed pieces here. How many of these you need depends on how long you want to make your strap. In addition to that, you need screws, you need synthetic webbing, the exact dimensions for these in both metric and imperial system you will find in the instructions. Then you need to 3D print this little hole guide that we will use to make the holes in that synthetic strap. You will need a bit of tools. You need a screwdriver, a relatively sharp pair of scissors, something you can poke hole through the webbing with. You need a pen that can write on the black webbing. I use a correction pen with white ink. You can use a pen with silver, gold, or another kind of ink that can write on your webbing of choice. My choice is black, so I need a light ink. You will need a lighter to burn the end of the webbing. You will need a soldering iron or soldering iron, depending on where you are in the world. And then, perhaps most importantly, you need to wear your safety glasses all the time when you're working on things that can come flying and injure your eyes. So always wear your safety glasses, don't forget that. So this is all you need. So let's get started. The very first thing you want to do is to lay out your pieces on the table exactly as you want the strap to be. That also ensures that you actually have printed all the pieces you need, and you may discover you want a longer strap and you may want to go back and do some more printing before you actually do assembly. But before we start working on my strap here today, let's take a look at another one that's already assembled. So this one looks pretty weird with all the different colors, but I made it in different colors just to make it very clear and point out to which different pieces you need. So you will need 7 different pieces for the strap. You need the end swivels, of course, and you want to print those as mirrors just so you have the nice upper printed surface forwards on your bag on both sides. Then you need the first piece here, which is the same on each side. The kind of triangular shape this is where you can add or subtract length from your strap, so you can make it longer or shorter. If you want a long crossbody strap, you want a lot of these. The next pieces here, if we move inwards on the strap, these two are different, and you only need one of each of these pieces. And then you have the middle section that goes on top of your shoulder, and that's where you can again add or subtract length. And the piece that you want outermost, you need one more of those than you need of these pieces. So these are the 7 pieces you need. In addition to these 7 different pieces, you will eventually also need the 2 end buttons, but we won't use those until we make the final assembly later on. So forget about these right now. Okay, so I have decided on the length. This will be a pretty short strap. It's for a shoulder bag and not a crossbody bag. So I've decided on 3 of these triangular pieces, and I will have a total of 8 of these, and therefore 7 of the red ones. But again, this is totally up to you how long you will make it. These are all laid out on the table, but you can only see half the strap, but it doesn't matter. You will get this completely anyway. So the first thing you want to do is to lay out these on the table, and then you want to take your webbing and you want to cut your webbing somewhere about 15 to 20 centimeters longer than your strap, your laid out pieces. So in my case, so 20 centimeters there, it goes all the way up to the other end here, and that's how long we're going to cut the strap. And to cut the webbing, you need a pretty good pair of scissors that are sharp. But you will very soon discover if they aren't. So that's an easy step. Let's just cut the webbing to the correct length. So when you have cut the webbing to the correct length, the first thing you need to do is actually to cut it again. And this one at a severe angle. We want to cut it really pointy, like that. We want it this pointy, and then we're going to burn this edge with a lighter so it won't fray. And you can push this down with wet fingers. Be careful so you don't burn yourself. It's molten plastics and it is easy to burn yourself. Still fraying a little bit. Need to melt it a little bit more. You can also remelt it if it starts to fray during the assembly. There we go. There is our pointy tip. So when we're done with the pointy end, the next thing to do is to also melt the other end. And make sure this is cut perfectly at a 90-degree angle. Again, you need to have wet fingers when you do this, otherwise you will burn yourself. For this first step, you will need the marker pen, you will need the strap hole jig, and you will need a swivel. You could also use, and this makes it a little bit easier, a ruler. Didn't tell you that at the beginning, but there are a couple of ways of measuring how much you need to fold off. So the strap itself will be double, and then it will be inside the strap swivel. So we need to fold off exactly the amount of fabric needed to go one way inside the swivel to the big hole, like that. And that happens to be about 18 millimeters. So we can just measure 18 millimeters instead of eyeing it up. So 18 millimeters will be approximately there. So let's fold it and then push it into the swivel. And if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. You can do a little bit of trial and error, or you can eye it up, or you can measure on the swivel itself. So there we go. This fits perfect. So the cut edge here is right flush with the edge. We can see inside the big hole, we can see the little mark we made, and there it is inside the strap swivel. We'll take the marker pen again. So you need something that can write on the strap of your choice. I have a black strap, so I need a white pen, or you could also use silver ink or gold ink. This is actually a correction pen and it works great. So what you need to do with this correction pen is what I just did. You need to mark these two holes. So because we're going to make those holes through the strap with a soldering iron in just a little bit. So mark these holes and then take this out again. So for now we don't need the strap swivel. Instead we need the hole jig. So hold a firm grip, and if you were to let go of this and it unfolds, we're going to fold it right at these marks. So put it back in. Your strap should go in here or be right at the edge and bottom out here. And if you look at these little marks, you can see marks here, 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 and where these cross, that's where we want to make our holes. So the holes will be on the line here and right here. So let's heat up the soldering iron, because now we're going to make some holes. The soldering iron is now hot here, so let's get started. But first I just want to point out one thing, and that is this blue silicone mat that I have to protect the table. This is nothing you absolutely have to have, but it is a nice thing because it protects your workbench or kitchen table or wherever you're working on. So be careful. If you don't have one of these mats or something else that is rugged to protect the surface, make sure that you don't touch the soldering iron to the table surface, because you may damage it. And of course, make sure you don't burn yourself, because it is really hot. And as always, you should wear your safety glasses every time you do soldering. So don't forget to wear your safety glasses every time you do soldering. So Using the soldering iron to melt hole through plastics can be kind of hard on the tip. So if this is not your iron, you should ask for permission before you do it. But this is my soldering iron, so I can do pretty much anything I want to. So the first thing I have to do, because this has old solder on it, I have to clean it off. And I do that on this pad that comes with the soldering iron and that is wet. So what I want to do now is to use the soldering iron to melt the hole through this web. And there's the first hole, and there's the second hole. Cleaning it off a little bit. You want to have good ventilation because it could be a little bit of smoke from the plastics when you melt it. Then I want to use it to kind of make a little pad, a molten solid pad. Well, first molten, then it becomes solid around these holes. I use the side of the tip to make that, and again I just make the hole. Particularly when you push it through, make sure you don't run it into the table. I ran it into my silicone mat. If you don't have that, you have to kind of hold it up and make sure you don't hit the table when you go through the holes. So at this step, let's take this out of the strap jig, and you will notice that we have these nice flats on the front side, but we don't have it on the back. So let's make them on the back as well. You have to be careful so you don't melt the big hole in the strap where you don't want it. If you mess up, because we added that extra material, the 15 to 20 centimeters on the strap, you have the chance that you have another chance. You can just cut off this end, and then you can try it again. So just melt the surface nice and flat, and then we'll run through the holes one more time. Here you could do, if you're very, very careful, you can wet your fingers and you can push quickly onto the plastics. But again, make sure you don't burn yourself. And then just work this until you consider this to be a good hole. It needs to be nice and flat. It can't be too thick, then it won't fit back into the swivel. Let's see if this fits. That slides in nicely. You can see that it is lining up pretty well. We can use a pointy thing, push through, make sure the holes we made in the strap lines up with the holes in the swivel. Looks very good to me. So I'm quite sure that this is done. So what I'm going to do now, before I start assembling this with screws, is that I'm going to take the tip of my soldering iron and clean up all that icky molten plastics onto the pad, or you may want to use a different pad like a wet piece of kitchen tissue so you don't get plastics onto your soldering iron pad that you use for other work. And then before we turn it off, we need to put solder back on the tip to protect it. We don't want to leave the tip cooling down without having any solder on it. So put solder on the tip, put it in the holder, and then let's just turn it off. So let's see if we can get these screws to fit. So these are M3 screws, they're 6 millimeters long. That looks like this is going in very nicely. Let's see what it looks on the back. Oh yeah, it goes perfectly right through. You have to be quite gentle when you torque this, when you tighten this, because the screw is just gripping right in the plastics, and the plastics is not very strong, and you could strip out the threads, and that's not good. If you do that, you will need to print a new swivel. So just gentle, kind of like 2 fingers. And if the screws don't go perfectly through, You may have to take the strap out and remelt it, remelt the hole and fix the hole up. But I was lucky, it went through perfectly fine. And this is all assembled. So now when the first strap swivel is in place, you will discover why we made this pointed tip in the very beginning. So what you first want to do is you want to take a look at your strap swivel, and you want to see and notice which surface is the surface that was towards the top when it was printed, because this surface is typically prettier than the surface that was towards the bed. You want that to be to forward of the bag. So it takes a little bit of planning on how we're going to assemble this, but the good thing is if you assemble it and you don't like it, you can simply change your mind. So I'm going to line up again the order I want my pieces to be assembled. So I've decided that this is what my strap is going to look like. I had to make 3 rows just to fit them on the screen here, but you see the idea which order these pieces are coming. So I'm going to take my swivel and turn the surface, the nice top printed surface, towards me. And then I'm just going to run along this whole strap, kind of a firm grip without messing up all my pieces, and get to the pointy end. So now the pointy end here and the top surface is the same as the top surface here. So whatever I put on in this orientation will end up stacking up nicely in the correct orientation against the strap swivel. I hope you follow what I mean. If not, you're going to discover this very quickly, that you have to get these pieces on in the correct orientation. So let's just get started here. I'm just threading this on like that. You can see how easy it is because we made it pointy. And again, make sure to keep the same orientation of the strap. And we're just threading all these pieces on. Run them down the strap. I'm making a mess of the pieces, but it's just kind of hard because I try to fit it all on the screen. When you do this yourself, you will just lay it out on the table and you will have plenty of space to work to assemble all these pieces. And if you were to do it in the wrong order, it's easy, just take it off and then you put on it in the correct order again. That orientation. Uh-oh, now it's getting a little bit tricky. So let's lay these out again, make sure we get them in the correct order. So here I have my strap, swivel, the piece with the triangular pieces, the top for my shoulder, and then got a firm grip there. This is a unique piece, just like the other one on the other side. And then I want these triangular pieces. Oh, I did it wrong. I turned it around. Okay, let's take these off. I did not do that intentionally. It was an honest mistake. But you see how easy it is to make mistakes and how easy it is to fix the mistakes when you make mistakes. So that way, and then this one goes this way, and then that one goes that way. Okay. And then we actually also want the swivel on. So let's put these all, just pull it out here. And here's the whole thing. Can't really fit it in the picture. But that's the whole strap. So this is a relatively short one, just for a shoulder bag. So what you want to do now is that you want to push this up tight together. And then you can approach these two ways. I can tell you that you typically need about 10mm gap here to get good motion in your strap. But that may vary a little bit about how long you make it. So let's just close up that gap for now. Then hold on to your swivel and let's bend your strap. Bend it like you want it to be able to bend while you're wearing the bag. So get the motion you want out of the strap. And then don't move anything. Let's just make a little mark right here in the hole where we think we want to fold the strap. And then hang on to the swivel and the strap. Push all of the pieces back tight so they stacked up tightly, and you will discover that by just bending and working the strap the way it will work when you're wearing the bag, you will get approximately a 10mm gap here that you will need. If you were to connect the strap swivel with everything completely tightly stacked, the strap will be very stiff and won't bend when you wear the bag. So looking at my strap, I discovered that I've actually made a mistake. So up to here, the strap is correctly assembled, but these three are actually incorrect. These are turned in the incorrect orientation. Again, I didn't do this intentionally, but probably something happened here, and that's why I got these wrong, because I had done something wrong here. I don't know what I have done, but this whole section is assembled incorrectly. So I'd probably turned, I don't know what I've done, but the good news is we discovered it right now, and also wouldn't be hard to fix what we've done either. But let's just pull these off. Again, we are correct up to there. That's the correct one, that's the incorrect. You can see these two are turned in different orientations. So let's just turn them around like that. It goes like that. So while you're watching me fixing my mistake, take a look at your own assembly and make sure that you haven't done the same mistake. These should kind of nest in each other like scales. And that's the whole idea. That's what makes the strap so nice and moves so nice when you're wearing the bag. Even I had to think a little bit how these go together. So don't feel bad if you assemble it incorrectly. It's really easy to do, but it's also very easy to fix. And there we go, they're all assembled again. This time they're all in the correct orientation. And I have about 10mm there of slack. And that's what I will need when I assemble it, so you get the correct motion out of the strap. So our next and last task will be to install the strap swivel on this end of the strap. And what we need to do is we have the mark where the fold will go. And so we will take off the strap swivel, but leave all the other pieces on here. scales, as I typically call them. And then we can either fold this and measure out on the piece where we should cut the strap. So it has to go double folded inside the swivel and end up flush with the edge, which would be approximately here. Or we can measure, and we need about 18 millimeters from this white mark. So here's the white mark, we go 18 millimeters, and that's where we will cut the strap. Cut the strap, and then we will burn this end, or melt this end, not burn it. We don't want it to start burning. You have to be a little bit careful when you do this, so the strap doesn't catch on fire. And if this is the first time you're using lighters, maybe you should ask someone for help while you do this. And with wet fingers, you can push this down, but be careful, you don't want to get molten plastics on your fingers. That will hurt a lot and could cause injury. So I told you to be careful. If you injure yourself, don't come after me, please. Okay, so let's fold this up, put it into the swivel, and push it fighting a little bit with me. Completely normal. We want it to just show here, just want it to show there in the opening. And now we will do the same thing as we did last time. We will mark the holes with a white pen or other suitable pen. Mark the center of the hole. I also like to mark it right there in case it unfolds. Take the swivel off, hold it in a firm grip, and then we will put it into the hole jig, and then we will just repeat what we did last and make the holes through the strap for the screws. So the soldering iron is hot again. We'll start by cleaning off the tip, and then I will melt through these holes, and I have the silicone mat again to protect the table. There it is. There are the two holes made. Make a flat. You can't stay for too long in each place, because then you will melt through and make a big hole in the strap where you're not supposed to. So it takes a little bit of finesse and fingertip feeling, but you will learn quickly, I promise. Just be careful so you don't burn yourself. And of course, as always, wear your safety glasses. There we go. I'm happy with those holes. Let's try and see if they fit. So let's push it into the swivel. It's a little harder to get these in because we don't have much room to hold it. So here you probably will need something that you can use to help you line up the holes. So there the holes look quite perfect to me. So let's get the screws, the screwdriver. And a light grip. Shouldn't take a lot of force. If it takes a lot of force, you're doing something wrong. Before we tighten it, let's see what it looks like on the back side. See, that lines up perfectly. We can see the whole end of the screw. Or maybe a better way of saying it, that the screw fills the whole hole and we can't see any black strap material or so. So again, tighten it just gently. That one doesn't look equally good. If you look here, you can see we see a little bit of black strap there. I don't really like that. It looks like it hasn't bottomed out perfectly. So it's this screw. Let's take it out and run through our pointy thing through the hole and see if we can get it to line up a little bit better. So just run that through the hole, kind of force the strap into place. Just tighten it with 2 fingers, and that looks better. See, the screws are perfectly lined up. So we're pretty much done. So there's one last thing we need to do, and that is quite important. We have to clean the soldering iron and put new solder on it. So clean off this icky old plastics. This is particularly important if you're using someone else's equipment. They will not be happy if they find it with all plastics over it. So just put new solder on the tip, and don't forget good ventilation. You can see there's a little bit of smoke coming off. Put it in the holder, and then we turn it off and put it away. There we go. Here's the strap. We did it. That wasn't that hard. It looks very pretty, and you can see now we have towards the same side we have that 3D printed top surface. To do this, you have to print mirror copies of each other. If you haven't done it, it's not the end of the world. You can easily swap it out later if you want to, or you can just live with the fact that you would have one nice top surface and you would have one bottom surface pointing towards the front of your bag. But there is your strap. So let's see you just in a little bit in the next video where we will assemble the entire bag and get it all ready for use. Great job!